Hello and welcome to Bhutan This Week, our weekly news magazine program with me, Pasang Doji. Our top stories this week. His Majesty the King pays his last respects to the former Indian Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Third National Assembly elections to cost 500 million UT. And being transgender, a sexual health condition and not mental illness. His Majesty the King paid his last respects and attended the state funeral of the former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee in New Delhi. The former Indian Prime Minister passed away last week at the age of 93 after a prolonged period of illness.
Upon arrival in New Delhi, His Majesty the King offered prayers to Atal Bihari Vajpayee's mortal remains at the BJP headquarters in the presence of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In the evening, His Majesty attended the funeral rites of the former Prime Minister at the Rashtriya Smriti Sthal in New Delhi. His Majesty also expressed the message of condolence to the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Back home, a prayer ceremony was conducted along with the lighting of 1,000 butter lamps this morning at the Kinre of the Tishichozo. His Majesty the Fourth Dugelpo, Her Majesty the Gelton, Their Majesties the Queen Mothers, and members of the royal family graced the solemn ceremony. The Chief Advisor of the Interim Government, Chairman of the Privy Council, and senior government officials were also present. The national flag was flown at half-mast across the country as a mark of respect to the former Prime Minister. The late Prime Minister first visited Bhutan as the Foreign Minister of India in 1977. He is fondly remembered in Bhutan for his tremendous goodwill towards the people and the leadership of Bhutan. He provided unstinted support to the realization of Bhutan's national objectives and contributed immensely to strengthening Indo-Bhutan relations and cooperation. He referred to Indo-Bhutan relations as an example of effective South-South cooperation and a model worthy of emulation. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was a visionary leader and statesman and an inspirational poet. He devoted his life to the service of his nation and contributed to regional and international cooperation and understanding. He was not only loved by the people of India but also enjoyed the respect of the international community. A news release from the Foreign Ministry stated that the royal government and the people of Bhutan are deeply saddened by the news and join the government and the people of India in mourning this great loss. For Pimbatong, this is Tichinomo, BBS News.
His Majesty the King granted a royal caution to the Election Commission announcing the election dates for the 2018 parliamentary elections. The poll day for the primary round of the third parliamentary election is on 15th September and the poll day for general is 18th October.
대 가쇼다 공단다 팁들로 고토 작토기 적인기 님디 지다고비 지체 쟁알루베 들레 대다도베 지당 작토디 지다 주비기 지체 좁게루베 고든 탑고비기 대 가쇼 고습 규비기 돌레 작토 렌속이 대다리 슈이세 대다친 디날루 대 레처르세 작토기 같이라 배고이나 가설베 쾌디기 대 개용루 배용세 디 나바 베니 이 세슈니라 대베돌로 당바라 시덴 속보디 수기 런신기 다디 유비기 골루 대 레처르다 티베베 딘다 지기 능케나라 코나 차첩 도딘 베니 이 세기 도딘 켈린 이구세 피급기 레름디 수기 대 아니 피차시날레 대 코로나 차접기 켈랑셀라 디수기 다디수다 제베 데 같이 작돌 한쪽이 가톨릭 옐렌베 차시날레 데 길대기 림바디수 데 ngam 슈기베라 코로나 차접도린 베베 데 작토디 네베 고린 탐이 세슈니라.
The third National Assembly election is estimated to cost the Election Commission 500 million UT. Major chunk of the provisional budget is estimated to cover expenditures of the electoral officials. The cost estimated also includes funds for each political party and their candidates during the primary and the general rounds.
A major chunk of more than 225 million is estimated as expenditures of the electoral officials during the elections, which will cover their daily allowances, transportation, telecommunication, and meals. The Election Commission is deputing more than 3,700 election officials for the third National Assembly elections. The number of electoral officials reduced by almost 2,000 from over 5,600 deployed during the National Council elections held earlier this year. The Commission's spokesperson Sonam Topge said they reviewed the past numbers and reduced the election officials to cut down costs. For the National Assembly elections this year, they have removed the polling assistants. They have also removed presiding officers in polling stations with less than 250 registered voters. Of 865 polling stations for the upcoming elections, 191 polling stations have less than 250 registered voters. 4 political parties will be taking a little over 7 million ngutum each as party fund during the primary round. And each candidate of the 2 political parties who will make it to the general round will be getting 150,000 ngutum each as campaign fund. Further, the provisional budget also includes expenses for the security personnel. For Kilodem, this is Pupkem for BBS News.
For women in the remote communities of Lunana, getting access to proper healthcare is an everyday challenge. And with the nearest grocery shop some 10 days away in Gasa or Punakha, the problem worsens when women are on their monthly period. There are no shops selling sanitary pads, and thus some women make do with a piece of cloth while others do not use anything at all.
Dema has been staying at Tenchi village in Lunana all her life. She shares her first experience with menstruation.
I was so afraid that time. I was afraid something might happen looking at the blood flowing. I was shy too. I thought I was the only one experiencing such a thing and I couldn't tell anyone. Before we didn't use anything. We reused a piece of cloth time and again.
For women of her age in the village, use of sanitary pads is a rarity.
아니 롤로 충고도 소리 아니라는 담벨라 땡아 치다단다 소리 아니라는 담니데 그 소침벨라 미사벨라로 때 아니베라 아니메 감로 시스샤니 솜술나도 때 아니베라 소데라 되는 거라 소 추추 도로 아니메 소소스 앞균 아니베라 되더라.
Her daughter Tenzin Dema is 16 years old and a student at Wambama Central School in Thimphu. She was in Lunana during the cordyceps collection season to help her parents. Unlike other elderly women in Lunana, Tenzin knows about menstrual health and hygiene.
Most women who stay here do not use the sanitary pads. Those who studied know and use such pads.
Here, the elderly women do not use sanitary pads when they are on their period, but those who are younger and of my age do use.
While Bhutan took part in Menstrual Hygiene Day by advocating the importance of having access to sanitary pads throughout the urban centers, the message, it seems, has not crossed beyond the mountains to the villages in Lunana.
We didn't hear anything about that. When we were in Punakha and Thimphu, we saw girls were using pads. We thought it was important for our hygiene. That is why we are using it. We carry it in bulk back to our village.
With no other place to buy the sanitary pads in the villages in Lunana, women can either choose not to use sanitary pads or reuse a piece of cloth as a replacement. The other, more expensive way is to transport it all the way from Punakha. Sharab Doji, BBS News.
Being transgender is a sexual health condition and not a mental illness according to the World Health Organization. WHO declared this in June through its newly released edition of the International Classification of Diseases. Meanwhile, at home, members of LGBT community say acceptance of this reclassification by the public will take time. Transgender is a term that describes people whose gender identity or expression does not match the sex they were assigned at birth.
While the social acceptance of LGBT or lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender community in Bhutan is growing, there still remains a subtle discrimination and stigmatization. Talking to BBS, one of the members of Rainbow Bhutan, a LGBT community, said, "The acceptance of transgender being not a mental illness is going to take time." As per WHO's Adolescents and At-Risk Populations team, transgender was taken out from the mental health disorders because there was a better understanding that this was not actually a mental health condition and living it there was causing stigma. So with this decision, it is hoped to help promote inclusivity and acceptance.
I still feel that it might take some time for the community to get used to the idea that used to the fact that being transgender or like being, I don't know, being of any spectrum in the gender is not mental illness. Say for instance, like being homosexuality was also listed as mental illness in the year 1968. It took 5 years for them to remove it and another 15 years for them to actually like completely accept the idea that being homosexual is not a mental illness. So I feel like it might also be the same for transgender.
And for the LGBT community in Bhutan, the WHO's decision is seen as a step towards acceptance in a society that often discriminates it.
Removing the being transgender from the mental health category and like placing it in sexual health conditions actually opens up a lot of opportunity for transgender people to undergo hormone therapy and actually do something about their transition. It can open up various services for them to undergo sex reassignment and other hormonal therapies as well. So I think that's an advantage for us.
The reclassification is expected to help open doors for better access to healthcare, dignity and respect for the LGBT community globally. Sunampem for BBS News.
The wait continues for the people of Shimgang. It has been over a decade now and still the works to construct the 770 megawatt Chamkachu 1 hydropower project is yet to commence.
Locals say the hydro project has been among the pledges of the past two governments. However, on the ground, there are no signs of activity at both the powerhouse and dam sites. Work stopped after construction of a 10-kilometer road from Ringdibi to Digala. They say the two governments have failed to live up to their words.
Our only wish is that the hydropower project starts, but when? That's the question. Now, among the four political parties, whoever comes into power, we want that party to start with the works at the earliest. In 2008, the first democratically elected government said the project would start soon. They said it was delayed due to the construction of a bridge at Rindigang. The second government in power also promised the same but failed. Now, with the completion of the bridge at Rindigang, we hope the next ruling government will start the project soon for the benefit of the people of Khenri Namsung.
The detailed project report was prepared during Druk Phuntsum Chokpa's tenure as the ruling party. It was endorsed during the former government People's Democratic Party's tenure.
During our tenure as a government, we did the detailed project study and completed the DPR, detailed project report of Chamkachu, and it was ready to be started in the second government. Unfortunately, we could not come as a government, and the PDP, the second government, should have started it, but they failed on two grounds. The second government failed on two counts. Number one, they made it JV from the IG project, intergovernmental to JV, joint venture project. Secondly, they failed to agree on the joint venture modality on the Kolongchu project. So what they said was, Once the JV modality on Khorongchu was completed, it would apply to the Chamkorchu. But because they could not start Khorongchu, so Chamkorchu got automatically delayed.
According to PTP, Khorongchu Hydro Energy Limited being the first joint venture, there were issues to be resolved before taking up another such project.
And towards the end of 2016, the Government of India issued a guideline for cross-border trading in electricity, which we felt put restriction on Bhutan's energy access to Indian market, especially if it was not fully owned by the government. And especially we know that in the joint venture project, 50% is owned by public sector undertaking in India, 50% is owned by the government of Bhutan. So there were some issues. So now I think in a way they have all been resolved. In Indian, they have established a committee in the Ministry of External Affairs and the Ministry of Hydropower, Ministry of Power, and they have all been resolved. And we are yet to receive their agreement in writing. We believe that once that agreement comes in writing, then we will be able to start Chamkorchu project.
He added most preliminary works such as construction of access roads and bridges for Chamkorchu project are complete. The estimated cost of the 770 megawatt Chamkorchu 1 hydroelectric project is around 70 billion Newton. It is a joint venture between Druk Green Power Corporation and National Hydroelectric Power Corporation, India. With additional information from Pema Samdup in Shemgang, Pema Seldun Sring, BBS News.
More than 100 plot owners in Trongsa's extended town area could soon get approval to construct houses. For almost 3 years, they were disallowed from carrying out constructions so officials could study the land. Officials say plot owners will receive their luck terms in a few months, after which they can carry out the works. From more than 200 plot owners, around 100 of them carried out constructions without any problem. But for the other 100 plot owners, they were not granted construction approval. This was way back in 2015. Now they say they are happy having been told to submit their maps and drawings to officials for approval. The municipality office says constructions in the other half of the extension area were halted as they had to carry out surveys and other preparatory studies. This, she explains, was to make sure the land was okay for construction as they initially had doubts over it.
The plan preparation for the extended town began in 2015 December, and the construction moratorium being the prerequisite for any settlement planning, we have issued this withholding of any kind of construction activities in Sherabling. Since it has been 2 years into the construction moratorium, the municipality has started getting mounting pressure from the public for the construction.
All studies are now complete, but a recent land survey has left a few households upset.
Mapa trom sanai singe marera koila konedi. Dilente teribari kata kanyi mimbela ane sajiuda ane kat malaya kum dile analaya ya atike be ane be imbela. Kachina oye gadibe mo silaban te saji mi disigia ngachige mishibe kachina hamako si konge ane be sundola.
Anangagi chimi anarangagi sa imo ani di tombin se shadame. Dile chu yesalen 아닌지 사고치 마빨리 아니 똥빈세 같이 체지기 소니 침 같이 소미도 되보다 체기라 인슬라미 아니 하미고세 체기라 일로 같이 소미도로 슬랍더디 들리딩 같이 디스 노사 마메데.
The municipality says they have received the complaints from 5 households, but they added it was all related to land pooling for which nothing can be done. Meanwhile, the office shared land owner certificates from the National Land Commission would arrive in a few months. For Pasa in Tongsa, this is Pasung Doji for BBS News. People residing in Changchelu in Samrup Jongkhar have to spend sleepless nights whenever there is heavy rain. The area is located near Amachu and there is risk of flooding with no river protection wall. People say it's high time to come up with some plans before it is too late.
Gomdar Central School, Basic Health Unit and Gomdar Geog Center is located just along the bank of Nyera Amachu along with about 10 households. And they always have to live in fear.
We don't know when the disaster will strike. The Geog Center, school and some houses are located near Amachu, so we face problem. We have to always worry without any flood protection wall.
They say they will put it in the plan, but it never happened. I don't know whether it's in the 12th five-year plan or not. I've been always requesting local leaders for river protection wall. It is getting delayed.
I have been living here at Changchelu for 15 years now. I remember running to high ground after a flood about a decade ago. Even now, when it rains, I feel afraid, and if we get river protection wall, we will be grateful.
Meanwhile, Gomdar Geog administration is looking for an alternative and funds to construct a river protection wall.
We tried to put it in the 12th five-year plan, but it is expensive to carry out mitigation work and we don't have funds. And if we use available budget for mitigation work, then we are not able to carry out other development activities. Now we are planning to request the government and to look for other alternatives, as it is very important.
Until then, locals here should remain alert during heavy downpour. For Kilwachu in Samrup Jongkhar, Pema Saldun Sring, BBS News.
India is the new champions of the SAF Under-15 Women's Championship 2018. In the final split last week, they defeated the defending champions Bangladesh by 1-0. Meanwhile, Bhutan secured a penalty shootout win over Nepal to confirm the third position. For the Indians, the intention was clear. They were there to change the course of fate they suffered at the hands of Bangladesh in the championship's final last year. They started the game strong with Avika Singh almost opening the scoreline with this free kick. The two sides tried their best to open their accounts, but the defensive line stood tall and well built. It was a goalless draw at the break. The only goal of the game came in the 66th minute. A quick shot corner and the piercing cross from Lindercombe was well converted by Sunita Munda. In a desperate attempt to equalize and keep their hopes alive, the Bangladeshi Tigers gave all they had but failed to capitalize on the chances. The third place match was played between the host nation Bhutan and Nepal before the finals. After failing to reach the finals, both the teams looked determined to win the third place of the championship. And it was Bhutan who had an early lead after scoring in the 3rd minute. The Nepalese girls, however, started the second half strong as they netted in 2 back-to-back goals. The lead was short-lived as the Dragon Girls levelled the score in the 66th minute. Following a blunder by the Nepalese goalkeeper, Ishibida scored her third goal of the tournament in style. After the 90 minutes ended all square, the contest went to the dreaded penalty shootout. Making two crucial saves, the Bhutanese skipper Kinzangdema won the penalty shootout for Bhutan.
It was a very tough match in Nepal. Nepal is a strong team. First half, after we scored a goal, a little bit the girls they felt just making more defense. Because before we start the match, I tell them because we are more better performance second half than first half. That's why we are wasting the second half. But after second half, as you know, maybe before 10 minutes we got 2 goals, we lose 2 goals, and then the girls are a bit more nervous, and then they getting more confidence. This is one of the big issues, and then the girls they really did well, they're learning blah blah blah. This is one of the
Trophies and individual medals were awarded to the winners, runners-up and the first runners-up. The South Asian Football Federation's Under-15 Women's Championship this year saw 6 countries taking part. This is Pasandoji for BBS News. Well, that's all we have got for you this week. Thank you for watching. Until next time, this is Pasandoji saying goodbye.